Hello, everyone, and welcome to our seventh global conversation on living and learning empathy in COVID-19. It's hard to believe we've already got 7 sessions going, and we're almost there to 12. So I wanted to mention this is a joint effort between UNESCO, National University of Ireland, Galway, Penn State, the Life Course Institute at NUI Galway, and the Child and Family Research Center there. I'm Mark Brennan. I'm UNESCO Chair for Children, Youth, and Community Leadership. And the global response to these discussions has just been massive. And we thank everyone for tuning in. Each week has just been bigger and better. And we want to thank all of you for watching, and to all our panelists this week. Please, feel free to ask questions throughout all of this, and to be engaged in the conversation. And if you can't, please follow up with us via email or through the website, and we can all talk more. We're delighted to keep the conversations going. So I'm really excited about this week's conversation. Today we look at how music and literature as creative arts have provided support and engagement, and comfort, and awareness of the issues that we're all facing during this global pandemic. Before we get started, I'd just like to first briefly introduce the really amazing group of panelists we have today. And a little bit later, all of them will tell you more about their work, their experiences, and how differences are being made on the ground in their communities through the creative arts. So to begin with, I'd like to introduce Dr. Bernadine Brady. She is a lecturer and senior researcher at NUI Galway. Much of her work is focused on youth and civic development. She's widely published and seen as an expert in all of these areas. She's also been doing amazing work in recent years around the importance of creative arts and culture and music, and how that contributes to both personal and societal development. Our other panelist will be Owen Dolan. He's a acclaimed musician and activist. He's also a Foróige youth worker with the Foróige, the National Youth Organization of Ireland. And over the course of his career, he's worked with thousands of youth. He's also the founder of an amazing program called Sound Surfers, which has risen to be one of Foróige's most prominent and emerging programs that brings together youth, development, skills, activism, and a whole series of other things that he'll certainly talk about. I also want to mention, in the context of this, Owen has a new EP out, just released this past week. It's called June Hope, and it's available on bandcamp.com. But not only are we giving a plug there, it's a brilliant collection of songs, but it was recorded as a charity fundraiser for youth refugees in Ireland who are in direct care. So check it out, buy it, enjoy it, and support some of the youth refugees with this. Another key group of people we want to include that have been instrumental and incredibly active within the Sound Surfers program and Foróige is Dan Kemp, and then Shannon and Shirley Ward. The three of you have been incredibly active Foróige members. You're part of the Eastside Youth Services in Galway City. And in particular, you've been involved in participating in the formation of Sound Surfers from the beginning. And we're really looking forward to hearing what you have to say about it and your experiences. Another key aspect of this talk today is the area of literature and creative writing, how those go hand in hand with music and storytelling, and sharing really common aspects of life. They're touching all of us. So with this in mind, I want to introduce Jack Gabby. Jack is an up-and-coming author, very talented undergraduate student at NUI Galway, studying English literature and creative writing. He's also a very active member of the Youth as Researchers program, and served as an intern at the UNESCO Child and Family Research Center at NUI Galway. And in that capacity, he worked very closely with the Activating Social Empathy program that was implemented and distributed through schools and programs all over the country. So welcome, everyone. And to start our conversation today, I want to first show a really brilliant creative video that was created by youth to show and stress the importance of empathy as the cornerstone to our creative societies, and how we can use that in creating civil and just societies. So if we could nowadays, we could just play the video quick, and then we can continue our discussion.
To me, well, to me, empathy is basically the key to unlocking hatred in all the world.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, sometimes I think it's very easy to jump to conclusions and make assumptions about another shoe. But I think it's important to stop and wonder why. Why do we and others say and do the things we do? Like, I think it's important to wonder how we got to be where we are in life. You know?
No pair of shoes is the same. We all have different stories to tell. We just need someone to tell them to, someone to listen, and most importantly, someone to understand.
I suppose empathy is compassion, which is really what we need to make this world a more peaceful place.
Empathy? Oh, yeah. Isn't that trying to see and feel from somebody else's point of view?
Just feeling for others, like, it's basic enough.
Some people might look at me and say, "You're lazy, you're no good." But that's not true and it's not fair. If they took the time to listen and step into me, then I know they would understand.
Step into me.
Step into me.
Step into me.
Step into me.
Step into us.
Empathy can change the world.
Take action.
Put yourself in somebody else's shoes.
And be the change.
It's a fantastic way to start off today. It's an absolutely brilliant video that shows off how a short creative piece can speak volumes and tell much more about what we should do and how we can change things than we would in any other way. So as we begin here, I would just like to say a few words about the importance of music and literature and the creative arts. These are two of my favorite things. And I think that both bring an understanding to life that makes us think deeper. They share our experiences to a wider world. They also share the experiences of others and allows us to tell their stories. And I think through music, through literature, through research, everything, it's one of the greatest honors we could have, is the ability to tell someone else's story. And they also, through these venues, they inspire us to dream a bit bigger and to make the world a bit better, even in incredibly challenging and difficult times like this. In many ways, if you think about it, music and literature, they really serve as the soundtracks and the narratives for our lives. And they can also give us some peace, that we're not alone during times like this, that we have common experiences. And in the context of this, I'm reminded of a question and a quote that our friend and renowned artist, Roger Waters from Pink Floyd, posed in his landmark work, The Album. The key statement is, the lyric was, "Does anyone else here feel the way I do?" Music allows us to, and literature allows us to connect across the divide of all these differences we have. And it's also the case, as you look at music and literature, they've often been the megaphone for a life lived and for social justice. Whether it be in the words of one of my favorite authors, is Jack Kerouac, and his book On the Road was just instrumental in my life. And the idea there was that a life lived mattered. And a favorite quote of his from mine that always resonates with me was where he said within the book, "Our battered suitcase is on the sidewalks again. We had longer ways to go, but no matter, the road is life." For me, that statement has kind of never left my head. So much so that my wife had it engraved on the back of my iPad. It's one of these things that's there. But action can also be part of our music. The quest for social justice can be part of this. And as the punk rock icons, The Clash, presented music and social justice as one and the same. And in their words, their work was a public service announcement with guitars. So it's music and literature that have been at the core of our humanity for nearly all of our existence. They're inherently part of who we are and who we want to be. And I think at the core of all this is empathy. So in this really exciting context, let's talk to our panelists. I'd like to first maybe move on to Bernadine. You've done all kinds of work in this area. You've conducted an enormous amount of landmark work on youth and civic engagement and empathy. And again, in recent years, music and arts. can you tell us about your work, and how it's being used on the ground, and anything else you have to say about it?
Okay, thanks, Mark. It's great to be part of this great panel. Delighted to be here. Thank you. So, as you say, we've been involved in researching youth empathy and pro-social behaviour over the last number of years. Just to clarify what I mean by these concepts, so by empathy, we're talking about the ability to understand and share the emotions of another person. And also then pro-social behaviour is closely linked to that, which is about voluntary behaviour intended to help or benefit another person. So we've been doing a big programme of research for the last few years exploring, I suppose there's a lot of concern that empathy and pro-social behaviour are declining among young people as a result of individualisation of society, as a result of more online behaviour where you don't see people face to face and you can be a warrior behind your computer screen and not really care about people's feelings. So as part of this, we did a big study of second level students in Ireland. And one of the findings, really interesting findings, was that young people who are involved in extracurricular activities like music, youth work, sports, showed higher levels of empathy and pro-social behaviour than young people who weren't. So I suppose since this study, we found also at the time that this was also reflected in the international literature. So we've been exploring in a little bit more detail just around these, I suppose, how music and creative arts and other activities contribute to empathy and pro-social behaviour. So I suppose what I'd like to do for the next few minutes is just to following on from your point, Mark, just about music, just to reflect on it a little bit and just try to unpack why or how, I suppose, music can contribute to empathy or enhance empathy among people. So there was an interesting paper by Melizzo last year where he identified 4 characteristics of music. So one of them is that music is a global phenomenon. So music is loved across the world. It's something every country and every culture can identify with. When you hear music from another country or culture, it provides a neutral common ground where we can kind of use as a starting point around sharing experiences. Music is also a deeply human experience. So it can, for all of us, I suppose, when you hear a song, it can awaken emotions or feelings of somebody that you've loved or lost. It can awaken memories. It helps us to kind of, I suppose, understand how other people are feeling. So it can kind of unite us in this shared humanity that can help us to transcend our daily struggles and what we're going through. As music is also a social phenomenon, so it's very much a mechanism that we can use to connect with others who have similar tastes to us, to distance ourselves from people who don't have similar music tastes than us, which we've all done, let's face it, to make friends and to develop our own sense of identity, be that as somebody who loves country music or who loves traditional music or rap or whatever the case may be. But as you mentioned as well, Mark, music can also be a transformative phenomenon, whereby people coming together to make or to enjoy music can generate new ideas, new perspectives, new understandings as a result of coming together and hearing each other's stories and points of view. And that in turn can bring about shifts in understanding and action and lead to new ways of doing things in the world. So I suppose reflecting on these characteristics, it kind of helps to explain why music is associated with higher levels of empathy and so on, and why it can be such a potent force for human connection, empathy, social understanding. So we saw this during the lockdown, where there was lots of examples on the news at night of people sharing music and dance sessions with their neighbours, where the kind of uplifting music and this feeling of shared experience with others could kind of help people to move out of their daily struggles just for an hour or two. It's music. Music has the power to do that, to make people feel connected to others and to forget about their daily lives. So I suppose while music, it's something that we all enjoy every day organically in our normal lives, but increasingly over recent years, it's become more recognized as a tool or a mechanism for youth development activities and other forms of education. So organizations like UNESCO are increasingly recognize that music can, like sport, which was discussed last week in this podcast, and arts and literature can be important tools or mechanisms for building more peaceful, tolerant, inclusive, creative, sustainable societies. So the term artistic citizenship is kind of coming to the fore quite a bit to describe this type of work. So there's been a good amount of research done in recent years looking at the impact of music and creative projects with young people. So we're delighted that we're currently starting a research study with Sound Surfers, which Owen is going to talk about, and the rest of the guys in a few minutes. And there've been some really other interesting studies done internationally. And a lot of these studies have found that projects involving arts and creative activities in the context of kind of youth work settings have increased empathy and intercultural understanding among young people, between people, and that they also can enhance youth participation and voice, whereby young people get to articulate their experiences and their feelings. So, a lot of these projects have shown that young people can use music and arts to question the society they live in, discuss local and global issues affecting them, take on different perspectives as a result of hearing other people's stories and discussing things as a group, and becoming more politicized around particular issues, and also then identifying opportunities for collective action. So some examples, say, were a study by Budig in Spain, where they worked with groups of refugees around telling their stories using, narratives and arts-based approaches. Similarly, with a group of migrant youth in Cyprus, there was a study by Markadu. They all that the teenagers and the young people involved developed empathy and understanding of others and of themselves by discussing and sharing each other's stories. There was also a really interesting example in the research by Larkin Byrne and his colleagues down in Cork, where they used rap music with a group of young people from Cork City, from a really disadvantaged area, to, I suppose, allow them to express their feelings about their community and what they felt needed to be changed, and to articulate that to the county council and other people in positions of power. And there's an interesting quote from their article. They believe that the use of creative approaches can allow young people to express themselves in spaces where they are comfortable, reveal opinions which may not necessarily be articulated through other methods, and allows them to reflect their everyday life experiences and identity. And they also say that through reflection and performance, participants can often understand something which is already in plain view. So I think that's really interesting point around a lot of our day-to-day experiences, and also issues of exclusion and prejudice exist in plain view, whereas sometimes taking the time out through creative processes such as this, people can see them in a new light and start to question them and gain a deeper understanding of what's happening. So just to finish, I suppose we're all very aware, none of us this time last year could have predicted where we are today and what has happened in the last few months. So we're living in a very precarious world with sudden political, economic and environmental shifts. More than ever, I think we need to ensure that young people are capable of being global citizens. By this, we mean that they're capable of engaging with the world, of being appreciative and respectful for all forms of diversity, and willing to take action towards a better world. So I suppose on the basis of the evidence that we've come across, these kind of creative experiential methods like music and arts and literature have the potential to develop these global competencies that are increasingly required in the 21st century. So we look forward to exploring these issues more through the Sound Surfers programme and our other work with Feroiga in Ireland, and our international collaborations with yourself, Mark, and others. So that's it.
That's great. Thanks so much, Bernadine. It's absolutely brilliant work you've done, and it'll give us much to talk about in a few minutes with question and answers. I'd encourage everyone out there to check out Bernadine's work. It's among the highest level of scholarship, but even more important, it's developed and applied, and it's used on the ground to make a difference. And we've got lots of examples of how it has. I'd also just like to touch on one thing that I should have mentioned earlier, and Bernadine, you mentioned it, that music has played an important part, especially with youth. It's always been the tool of youth voice. No permission is needed from others. There's no one to stop them. This is the way they can share their views of the world, share their concerns, and explain what they see out there. And very often it's much more accurate than us as researchers and politicians and all kinds of other people would see. So it's an important venue there. And in this light, let's move now on to Owen. Owen, you're a prolific artist. You've produced an amazing body of work, and it brings together youth work, activism for the disadvantaged. Your work is increasingly being acknowledged in Ireland and abroad for its message, for its power, and for its ability to help us understand each other. And then you've taken all that, which is impressive as it is, and woven it into the Foréga Sound Surfers program that's now receiving enormous international acclaim. We have plans now to bring it to America. Other places are looking for it. You've certainly kept yourself busy. So what can you tell us about these, about your background, your craft, the work you've done with sound servers, however you want to take it and run with it?
Thanks a million, Mark, and thanks to Bernadine as well, and great to be here on the panel this evening. I suppose my kind of story starts back in 2008 when I first became employed with Foréga as a project worker on the east side of Galway City. When I came in initially, I was very inexperienced, but very open-minded to the challenges that youth work present like day to day. I had like a vague idea of doing something around music, and I knew, especially in the first couple of years, just from speaking and listening with young people, that was just something that young people were very, very interested in, particularly around recording. But I didn't have any kind of, I had a passion for music. I was playing music all my life up to that point, but I didn't really know a whole lot about music technology. So I went and I looked around at educational options. So I went back as a mature student to Pulse College in Dublin, which is a college based in Windmill Lane Studios, which is a very highly regarded studio. They've had clients like U2 and Lady Gaga, amongst others, through the years. So it was a really, really good experience for me. So I went down as a part-time youth worker for a couple of years, and just to do this course and to get my diploma in music technology. And I suppose around that time and up to that point, I've been working with some great colleagues in Foréga in Galway City, developing this program. Initially, we had the likes of Paul Tanyan and Paul Hayes, and then more recently, Jen Hesnan and others as well in Foréga that have been involved in kind of, I suppose, developing this program as it's come along. And essentially, when Sound Surfers started off, it was quite a broad music program. So we were doing everything from guitar lessons to open mic nights to lots of other things that we still continued. But all the time there was this focus this interest from young people that was coming all the time, that it was around recording. So I suppose when I was doing my course in Dublin and was going back and forth to Galway, and I was, I suppose, working with young people with projects at the time before I actually got my diploma, and thereafter, it became more and more about recording, and that. So I was very fortunate then in recent years, or at the start of this year, to get a secondment for my position as a project worker to develop this at a full-time basis, thanks to support from Freuga and from the Child and Family Research Centre, UNESCO. So we had lots of plans to do, to with along with Bernadine, and to have these sites and to go along to different places around Ireland. But with everything that hit with COVID, we had to completely change our plans. And we, along with the young people, we decided to go and do our sessions through Zoom. So we did, and thankfully, music technology, it lends itself quite well to doing things online and to doing things through Zoom. So it actually worked quite well. I think, as you'll hear from Dannon and Shannon and Shirley shortly. But I suppose a bit about like Sound Surfers itself, it's essentially it's a youth development program that uses music technology as a tool for empowerment. We empower young people, so giving them the initial kind of skills in around everything from how to use a microphone to how to record, the small bit around composition as well. So, and it's not just songwriting; it could be poetry as well. It could be spoken word. It could be podcasting, and whatever young people are interested and passionate about, we try and nurture that, and then try and capture that through the vehicle of music technology. And then from, I suppose, as young people get more familiar with the technical side to using music technology, that they then go on and we start to do creative projects together. And what we've been doing the last while is really focusing in the idea of empathy, and kind of exploring kind of different themes and topics through that. And we're still in terms of the research and study, as Bernadine mentioned, we're still kind of starting that off, but we've already got like some really fascinating and very interesting results from it, in terms of some of the issues and things that have been explored. So it's been very very unexpected in terms of how the year has panned out for this particular program, but it's also been really positive as well, because it's that whole thing of being able to overcome adversity, and that's the whole message with Freuga. There's a big message around overcoming adversity. So it was great that as a group that we weren't able to meet in person, we weren't able to do a lot of the kind of work that we would normally like to do and that would be familiar with youth work, but we managed to make it work online, and we're really looking forward to continue it into the future, and then also as well doing getting the research and getting the study side of it as well with our friends in the university. So and I think that's where we're at from now. And as I said, Dan and Shannon and Shirley will be able to shed some light on the other aspects of the program and their experiences of it.
That's great, Owen. Thanks so much. It's just really amazing stuff that ties all of this together. It's not just about music. It's the way we connect in so many different ways, and the messages we share. Everything you've talked about, how music connects our common humanity, our connectedness to each other, and then the many, many ways that we can all be creative. Even for people like me who couldn't carry a tune to save my life, there's a role for me within the program, and I think that's what's been so powerful and so impactful about the Sound Surfers program. So really well done. And I know there'll be a bunch of questions more to talk about in a few minutes. But as you just mentioned, let's turn to Shannon and Dannon and Shirley now. The three of you have just had fascinating stories, and your connection to Sound Surfers has been really cool. So maybe we can start with Shannon, but can you just tell us about your involvement with Sound Surfers and how it's affected you, and how you got involved and that kind of stuff?
Well, I found that Sound Surfers has helped me express myself through music. First, we've been trying to record things, just using the equipment and learning how to use Pro Tools and everything. But now we're hoping to produce our own songs.
Wow, amazing. How about you, Dannon? What's your story with this? How'd you get connected? And
well, I firstly came in contact with Sound Surfers after school. I had a lot of friends that were into rap music, and they needed help to produce their mixtapes. And they called me up after school, and they were like, "Yo, I know there's a studio next door." And the first day we come in and we meet Owen, and I could just tell it was such a good ambience and it was such good vibes. He was always trying to teach us something, and there was always something new to learn, and it just opened like a totally new universe for me because I was always into music since a young age. But it was only until that point that I found out I wanted a career into music industry and a lot of music technology. And from then off, it just kicked off, and there was people like 20 people coming into Faroga, and they wanted to help everyone. All the young people wanted to start doing music as well, and it was just an amazing experience overall.
Amazing. How about you, Shirley?
When we first started, we just wanted to record music because we wanted to sing songs, but we didn't know where to start. So, but we knew Owen, we knew he was doing it, so we asked him to like give us some time in the studio, and he helped us a lot with recording the music and then editing the music because we had no idea at all how to do anything. And he helped us how to use Pro Tools and how to set up music. And it was really helpful because now we've got further, and he helped us like set up a YouTube channel to put music up, and it's really easy, now, and they're also encouraging with everything they do, and he's helping us like write music too now.
Amazing. Yeah, and it's that's the impression I've got with the program, that it's just it provides all kinds of skills, but at the same time it really creates a sense of community. Maybe three of you just, and I know we have to move on, but maybe just three of you for a second could tell us, what's the impact of the program been on you, or what have you seen it? How have you seen it impact other people? Anybody can chime in.
Oh, well, I've seen it impact a friend of ours. It's Marina. She's a friend of Danon's too, and she's actually gone on to produce her own music now. So it's been really inspiring for us to write our own music. Yeah, she helped us. It's kind of what inspired us to start, actually. Yeah.
Wow, very cool. Excellent. Well, let's we'll come back to all this because there's a lot of questions. The questions are already flooding in, so we'll have a bunch of questions for you in a minute. And it's really been inspiring, the work you're doing, all three of you. And like I said, we'll talk more in a second here. The last member of our panel here, we can talk about empathy and creative arts and everything else through a different lens. And that's the creative writing and literature. And with literature and as music, it's often been the open venue for youth to share their world, to highlight the critical issues and call for change within their societies. So let's turn to Jack. Jack, you've been engaged in youth research, activism, creative writing. You're quickly establishing yourself as a well-known author. All this seems to, for me at least, seems to have empathy at the core of it, or at least empathy is a big part. Can you tell us about your writing, and maybe what role empathy plays, and how you found this path?
Thank you, Mark. Well, I think I should probably start out by saying that a lot of the work that I do, from writing to empathy, is all very much in its infancy at the moment. But my personal philosophy with writing is that, and reading specifically with literature, is that reading for young people is very much on the downturn. In 2019, a study done in America showed that 29% of students hadn't read a book in a year. And a similar study done in Ireland by the National Literary Trust showed that 26% of students read daily, of students under age 18. And I'll not say it's all doom and gloom, of course, because in that same study, 53% said they enjoyed reading. So there's a number of reasons for the decline of reading among students. I think most of all, we live in an information age where entertainment is coming at us at a constant rate, and sitting down and reading is just perceived as somewhat mundane. And at the same time, this entertainment that we get is catered to us. In the study I mentioned, 30% of students were unable to find a book that interests them, which is something that doesn't happen with YouTube or phones, where cookies cater entertainment for you. Of course, pre-COVID-19, there was lack of access in that monetarily people couldn't afford books, perhaps, or geographically they were too far away from libraries. And now that we are in the midst of a pandemic, these services are closed anyways. However, the most troubling for me reason that people are moving away from reading is this belief that it's less valuable. We are increasingly living in an economically uncertain age, and we're socially anxious. And we can begin to see things like reading and the arts as unproductive or useless to furthering a vocation. But the inherently valuable thing about reading is the pro-social empathetic behavior it promotes in a world that's kind of oblivious to the concerns and feelings of others. The author George R. R. Martin, when asked about the importance of reading, said that a reader lives 1,000 lives before he dies. The man who never reads lives one. And this really shows the importance of engaging with literature and how that promotes empathy. Novels, they rely on deliberative thought. So there's a back and forth of information. There's a point of view of the character you're reading, the character that they interact with, the author themselves, and all of these are juxtaposed to your own perceptions and point of views. We read about worlds that are very far away from our own, about marginalized people and silenced perspectives, economic hardship, and structures of inequality that could be entirely different from what we understand, all making us question what we know and more tolerant of the world around us. So when we're recently with events with the Black Lives Matter movement in America, I recently read a book, Dear Martin, by the author Nick Stone, which is about a young African-American boy who begins to suffer racism in school and tries to live under Martin Luther's dream and questions whether or not it's sustainable in the modern day, which is a perspective that would have been totally inaccessible to me had I not the ability to read, or the access to reading. But reading doesn't immediately make us empathetic. We don't close a book and say, okay, now I care about people. It's a very gradual process. And it more gives us the tools to have a greater understanding of others the more we do so. And for some people, reading can be a call to action. We can see this in history with the author Harriet Stowe, who in 1852 wrote the book Uncle Tom's Cabin, which shed the light the atrocities of American slavery, both in America itself and in the world abroad. Allegedly, Abraham Lincoln met Harriet and said, "So you're the little woman who wrote the book that started this great war 10 years later in 1862. This likely never happened, but it speaks true to the effect that reading has on all of us to inspire us to defy injustices like that and really understand those point of views we would never see. Empathy through reading can also be used in a number of fields. In the medical field specifically, nurses and doctors who read about patients improve their care, and they don't see their patients as just another patient, but instead as a real person who is suffering. In the business sector as well, the promotion of empathy can lead to environmental empathy, more towards nature, and lead to actions that are focused on planetary conservation. So I just want to finish up by questioning during this pandemic, what can young people do with literature and how can they engage with it, knowing with these limitations that we mentioned before. And so I suppose the first thing would be to read anything. Reading serves as a gateway to further literature reading. So even if you have something that you don't like, you know that you don't like it, and you can further move on to find something you do enjoy, which allows to develop your individual tastes. Another one would be alternative accesses. So with bookstores and libraries being closed, there's ebooks, audiobooks, and online book retailers, such as Book Depository, which could be a potential access route to literature which you wouldn't be able to find during the pandemic. If you're specifically looking for empathy, there's nothing more important than looking for books that question what you already know and written by and written what you think maybe for someone else, but will really change your point of view and your perspective on things. And of course, it's also important to read with someone else. We have this perspective that reading is a solitary experience, that it's something that one does alone. But reading together, or even reading with a friend, or reading the same book apart, given the the situation, allows you to discuss the book with them, and the perspectives that you see may not be the same as the perspective that they see. As I said, if empathy can be a call to action, and those actions can't be done alone.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant, Jack. Thanks. Really impressive, important points, and impressive work you've been doing. And I and a lot of other people, I think, share your concern that we don't read enough. But it's interesting. If there's been one good side to this pandemic and all the being locked up, I've been reading constantly. Things I've been wanting to read for ages, and I just couldn't fit in for whatever reason. It's been great, but it is critical. And you're right. I mean, the lives we experience through the characters, we actually get to live them. And Pat Owen and Bernadine Brady and others, they've been doing some amazing research that show that the more empathy we have, the better we do in school. And part of it is because we put these, we don't just read about characters that are dealing with something. We put ourselves in the place of them, and that locks into our brain differently. And we have much to talk about next time I see you. But I think I put some of the great libraries of the world up there ahead of any kind of cathedral or anything else. Some of the most beautiful, magical places. So let's get on to some questions here. And my phone and email has been blowing up here, so you've got a ton of things to talk about. But first of all, thank all of you for your contributions and for shedding light on the role of music and literature play in our lives. You sparked a lot of ideas. So let me just jump in with a couple of general questions, and anyone, please feel free. We had one question here that said, these have been really tough times for everyone. And how has music or literature helped you or your friends get through it? Both in your life, but particularly in the context of COVID. Anyone want to jump in?
Yeah, I can say something.
Cool.
Oh. Like, over COVID-19 happening, people are gone really creative with putting music up. Like, if you go up online, there's loads of people are making, like, parodies of other songs, like, kind of like with COVID-19, like, due to it. And it's like, they're really creative with it lately. And, like, if you feel like a certain thing, it's kind of like you have more time to sit down and write down words that you want to write for a song or sing a song, because you're able to do it now that you're at home.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. That's brilliant. And I think, that's another thing about this whole pandemic. It's opened up a lot of opportunities for reflection. And I think as we look at reflecting on ourselves, but also on the wider society. I have a question here from Pete in Baltimore. And this, again, can go to anyone. What role do you see music and literature as having for raising empathy and making the world better in these tough times? Don't be shy now. How about Dana? What do you think? Oh, good. Critic.
Will I go?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Sorry. All right, Dana, do you want to take it? Oh, I'm on now. Yeah. My own take, and probably Dana would be able to add to it, is that I think, like somebody mentioned there about community and like the importance of a community, and I think that's the great thing about music, is that it brings people together at a local level. Like here in Galway, we have our own community from all ages, from young people right up to elderly people, that are connected in with music, and that just by being part of a community that's creative and that finds, I suppose, like healthy way of kind of expressing themselves, and that can have a positive effect for people as individuals, locally as part of a community, but also as well, I suppose, with where technology can be sometimes seen as a negative thing, but in in the case of with music, it can be extremely positive, that you can get really positive messages out from, a home studio in your bedroom, and that can be spread like right across the world. So I do think that it has like massive potential for change, and it's only probably, I think, because a lot of digital recording really has only, and home recording has really only come about in the last like 20 years or so. So I think we're only really starting to really understand the impact of the power of that, of having that at our fingertips.
Very cool. And what do you think, Dan? You had some ideas, and
Yeah, I totally agree because, as Bernadine said as well, I think music can become like a megaphone for young people to say things that they wouldn't usually say if they had the time. Because now we're not stuck to a routine. A lot of people have much more time and the precious time now that everyone's stuck at home. So the fact that people can just access anywhere around the world in the tip of their hands. It can be music, it can be literature, it can literally be anything. It just opens doors for young people to express themselves in music, and the fact that it can reach anywhere in the world is amazing. It's really amazing.
No, it's one of the most amazing things I think about this, that we, and this goes for literature too. We can create our own literature, our own music, and we can share it globally in a way that just was never there. Let me just jump. We have a question here from Kathy at Michigan State University. This is for Bernadine. And what she says is, we know that empathy is really important and helps young people in high schools to get better grades. Do we know enough about the positive educational side of music and arts education and its connection to a more empathetic world?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I suppose on myself, I would have been the same until we started studying this. I wouldn't have really made the links between music or sport or extracurricular activities and empathy. It just wouldn't have really done me. I think something that we probably need to raise more awareness about. And I think possibly research of this nature can help to do that. But I think probably at the moment, those activities are seen as kind of maybe beneficial for other reasons in terms of personal development or, developing different aptitudes and so on, or even for personal success, but they're not, their role in terms of promoting understanding and empathy and so on probably isn't so well understood, would be my view, yeah.
Okay, very cool. And we have another question for you. And this comes from Michael in Clontarf. He says he's a big fan. He says, you have an extensive catalog of music to your credit. You've evolved into a great storyteller, songwriter, and through your music, with many of your songs taking on the stories of others. Can you explore the conditions that allows you to put yourself in the place of others? Tell us about this process.
I don't know. That's a good question. I suppose I think it's the appreciation sometimes of, I think this has been a recurrent thing like this evening about like just having time to yourself. And I think when you have time for yourself, you can, I think, be in a more creative space. I think it allows you to be more creative, and I think it allows you to unleash your imagination. Sometimes, I suppose I see, for how I go about it anyways, is like sometimes it could be anything from seeing something in the news to hearing a story from a friend, and just kind of, I suppose, and this is the same thing with a lot of the young people. When we might work on a song or do something, sometimes it just starts off with an idea, a very kind of basic idea, and then you're just almost like pulling a thread or something. You're just kind of seeing where it goes or how long it is, and just kind of seeing what other kind of words or ideas come to mind. But it's a very abstract process, very hard, very I don't know I can't find the word for it really. But it's a very it's a process unlike anything else. But I know that it's it's something that I know I've made massive connections with other people through writing, through songwriting. I've made friends from all different people from lots of different backgrounds, different cultures, and everything, just through being involved in music. So I don't know. Yeah, it's it's a difficult one to answer.
Okay, no, it's very good. Just to make sure you're aware, he had a quick follow-up question. He says, have you any gigs planned for Dublin in the near future, and can you get me tickets? So you can worry about that one. So let's, how is one from Marcus in Athlone for Jack? The author Pat McCabe. Jack, do you agree with the author Pat McCabe, who once said that men over 30 don't read fiction anymore? And if so, why or why not?
That's an interesting question. I'm a big fan of Pat McCabe's work. There's definitely a push towards, I think, an idea that reading fiction is in some way childish, and that real stories almost can't be told. It's either it's a child story or it's genre fiction. You know, it's like crime novels and stuff, and that why once you reach a certain age you should mature and read what's important, histories or whatever. And there's definitely a place for that, but I think that, like I said, there's a truth to reading fiction, which is that there's other parts of the world that think differently to you. There's other people outside of what's in your own headspace, and you can read as much science and history as you want, but you may not end up thinking any differently, which is something that reading fiction challenges, which is necessary.
That's great. I couldn't agree more. I think you're absolutely dead on. We've got a really good question here for Dana and Shirley and Shannon. This is from Connell, who is a Feroiga alumni and who is living in Manhattan. He recently moved from Limerick. And what he's asking is, what is the best thing about being involved in Sound Surfers? And would you recommend it to other youth? And if so, why?
Yeah, I would recommend it to other people. Yeah, me too.
Yeah. How come?
It's kind of hard to explain it, but it's kind of very good. It's kind of like a home away from home version of a thing. Yeah. Like, if you have your family, sometimes you get very tired of them because you love them, but still you need some time away from them. And it's good to know, okay, I'm tired of you guys. I can go to the Foreign Center and just relax with them and record songs. And sometimes you don't even need to record songs. There's people who I know who are friends there. Sometimes we just sit down and play Uno. And it's just a place to go away and relax with them. And I would recommend more people to come so they can be welcome, to know that you don't have to stay at home or go outside or something. You can just, there's always a place to go. You can talk to other people and they can relate to the things you feel.
Excellent. What do you think, Jen?
Oh, I definitely agree. I would recommend it 100% because most of my friends, they were very into music, and they only gave in to their shyness to tell me that after they saw that I was involved into the project, and they knew that I was involved with music production together with Owen. And I feel, as Shirley and Shannon said, is almost a home away from home, because it's such a creative space, to just let your ideas run wild and just, let your imagination grow, because it's a very, very good program, and I had a lot of fun taking part in it.
Very cool. Now, I've got one last question here. We're about 5 minutes left. And I guess this is one for everyone, and maybe if all of you could answer this, it'd be great. This comes from Malcolm in London. And it says, what was the most instrumental music or literature, or both, that shaped you and your actions, and why? What's been the most instrumental stuff in your lives that you've heard or read?
Can I just come in, Mark? I remember.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember reading The Grapes of Wrath when I was probably in my early 20s, which is a long, long time ago now. But I remember it just, I suppose it just, I remember it having a profound impact in terms of just my understanding of what it was like to be displaced from your home and to, I suppose, to be on a journey that you didn't know where it was going to end, and that kind of, you could actually, nearly feel the dust on their faces. It was so vivid, the writing. So, but I literally have read hundreds of books over the years that have taken me to places like that, and hugely increased my, recently I just finished Mornings in Jenin about the Palestinian occupation, and again, just you get a huge insight into what it was like for people to live through that. So it's just, I totally agree with Jack's point that you get to live 1,000 lives or however many it is when you can read. So that's definitely one of the ones that sticks in my mind anyway.
Very cool. We have a lot to discuss next time we see each other.
Yeah.
Not a day goes by that I don't think of Tom Joad and what he's done. So, how about, we'll just go around the list here quick. How about you, Owen? What was the most influential book or music that just resonated with you to your core?
I would say it's a band from Liverpool or Merseyside called The Coral, and they had an album out around 2002, their debut album, and that really resonated with me because it was their type of music is quite surreal and quite out there, but their whole imagery and their whole aesthetic and everything was very, very similar to Galway, and I found it I was just amazed at the time to think that there was people in a different country that had just had a very kind of a similar kind of I don't know, that their music had a similar kind of feel to the way that Galway felt, but it wasn't Galway. It was obviously Liverpool. So that kind of really kind of connected with me. And like literature wise, probably would be probably like Pat McCabe, like any Pat McCabe, his work. I think it was really it's just again just a lot of things in that these ideas that you never thought would be possible to be able to for someone to be able to put it into words, but you're reading it off page and there it is, and so that's probably for me.
That's it. Cool. Okay, we got about 3 minutes, so let's go fast. How about you, Jack? What were the big ones?
Well, for me, I think when I was 18 and finishing up my leaving cert, I read The Great Gatsby by Scott Fitzgerald, and that maintains to be my favorite book that I've read since. And I think the reason why is because every character is equally hateable and lovable. You feel sorry for everyone at the end of it. Especially Gatsby, who, when introduced, you see as an upper crust kind of condescending man. But you slowly go to realize, and especially towards the end of the book, that everyone deserves the respect to understand what they went through, and that even those who are at the height, or as you view as the height, have gone slugging through the mud to get there sometimes. That's
very cool. Phenomenal book. Denon, tell me.
For me, I'd say I had two main influences. One is an amazing singer I'm currently working with. Her name is Marina Medina. She's just an overall amazing human being. And another is an American producer and rapper named Travis Scott. And on the outside, you probably think he's your stereotypical rapper, but his productions are so intricate. And he talks about his growing up in Houston and, a bit in the poverty-stricken area of the United States, and all the racial and political issues. And you wouldn't expect that, from the mainstream rap we hear today. But it just shows that it can take so many shapes and forms. And when me and Marina, we try to, implement that in our productions, because music can take so many sides. and understanding people's stories. I think that it definitely, it influences me until this day.
Amazing, yeah, and it's amazing how music cuts across cultures and how individual places and cultures take on their own and make it their own. It's phenomenal. Okay, Shannon and Shirley, give us our final thing we should listen to or read.
There's this Norwegian singer who I find is really good with stuff like that. She points her point across. She's different than usual singers. She sings with like empathy, and she explains situations in life that people don't usually talk about. You usually just talk about like crushes and like heartbreak and all these normal songs that there's like a cliche. People always sing about them. She sings about like gay rights. She sings about equalism. She sings about like you can't be racist towards everyone. And she's really encouraging with all her songs that she sings. Yeah, and she's so diverse in her words and everything she does. Yeah.
That's brilliant. What's her name?
Aurora.
Aurora. Okay, I didn't think I catch it. Okay, good. Well, great. Listen, thank you so much. I know we're out of time, and this would be wonderful to talk for days and hours. But this takes us to the end of the talk today. Again, thank you all so much. Throughout this whole process, two people I have to very much thank. Jillian Brown and Joanne Ford have been absolutely instrumental in this and have done amazing things to make all of this happen. So thank you both very, very much. So with this, keep the music and literature flowing. It does great things for all of us at all levels. Make sure to buy Owen's EP and support refugee youth. And we've got great conversations coming up. We still have 4 or 5 more. And next week, we're going to be talking about supporting students in these vulnerable times and ways that we can help and make things happen there. So thank you all again. Have a great day, and looking forward to seeing you next week. Be safe and be well.